Hello and welcome to our weekly Shuup webcast. My name is Daria and I'm here with Wes, Shuup's Technical Sales Director. Hi, Wes.
Hi, Daria.
Why are you doing the funny voice?
This is my interview voice.
This is your interview voice. I like it.
Okay.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And we're sitting here in the comfort of our homes because we currently cannot go to the office because of COVID. Big news. So we have been talking a lot about e-commerce in the past few weeks. And of course, as any person locked inside their houses, I've been shopping online quite a bit. And I noticed that I mostly buy things off of multi-vendor marketplaces and very seldom off of single vendor marketplaces. So we actually thought that it would be a really nice thing to talk about and discuss differences in single and multi-vendor e-commerce marketplaces and discuss pros and cons of each of them. How do you like it, Wes?
I like it, but which marketplace have you been shopping on?
Well, they're not paying me to give them that kind of advertisement, so I
Okay.
don't think I'll be telling you.
I hope they're Shuup customers.
I hope so too.
Okay, let's keep going.
So here you can see us. We've decided to add our faces. We also share the same last name. So Wes is a Shuup sales director and I'm a growth manager. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, I'm also a husband.
He's also a husband. Yeah. Because everybody thought that we just, have the same last name.
We could be brother and sister.
Sorry.
Oh, we're getting a couple chat messages.
It's probably about.
Oh, it's from George Annex. Yes, we will be sharing this video. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So we can email it to you. We have your email here. So thanks for reaching out.
Yes, we also share a summary of our webcast if you would like to read rather than listen to it, because we also do a lot of chit chat here.
Yeah, George says he loves us. So
thank you, George. Thank you, George. We love you too. So Wes, you are a professional and you know everything. Not only you are married to a shopaholic, but also you build multi-vendor marketplaces. Could you please tell us a little bit more about what's the main differences between single and multi-vendor marketplaces?
Well, that is the question for the next 20 minutes, I suppose. So we're going to dig into a lot of stuff here. So let's just get the obvious things out of the way. A single vendor marketplace is one vendor, and a multi-vendor marketplace has multiple vendors. We also have a tertiary option within Shuup, where basically each vendor themselves can have their own dedicated marketplace, dedicated single vendor marketplace. We can make them multi-vendor if you wish. That usually takes a little bit more work on our part to make the multi-shops multi-vendor, but it's sort of like Inception. It just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, sorry, I kind of droned down a little bit about that, but
that's fine.
So yeah, so I guess I don't know. What else would you like to know?
I guess that's it. And we can just go straight to technology of a marketplace. And I believe you've worked both with single and multi-vendor marketplaces. And I assume they use different technologies, although it seems like they should be pretty similar. They can be qualified as, online stores, but yet there are so many differences. Could we go through some of them technology-wise?
Yeah. So, when you're working with a single vendor marketplace, it's pretty straightforward. Either whether you're a mom or pop, or if you are some sort of online retailer like H&M, largely you're going to be selling products that are branded to yourself. You're selling them, you're making the revenue on it, you're paying your own costs. The e-commerce is really another one of your sales channels that you're using to basically sell your inventory. With a multi-vendor marketplace, I guess I would look at this more like a Zalando model or Amazon or eBay. The marketplace is really a facilitator of sales for, clothing companies. We're talking about Zalando, for example, where brands are submitting their products to the moderator admin. They are curating their lists, and then they are presenting those to customers on your behalf. So there's a big difference in that. And there's a lot of, there's more actors who are participating in the e-commerce itself. So it means there's more motivations, more interests that need to be taken into account when you're building one. So sort of to put a period on all of that, like in terms of technology, there's three really key things that we have to keep in mind. That's we have here, the checkout, shipping method, and order management. So the checkout is a tricky situation because let's take an example. Say you're in the EU and you are an EU, let's just stick with the clothing retailers because it's something we all do. I think we've all bought stuff off of one of these sites before. So say that you're in, the UK and you want to buy, a nice, I don't know, some nice shoes from Germany. I don't know, maybe a dress from Paris. And then, I don't know, like a summer hat from Barcelona. And you will put them all into one basket. So each one of these vendors needs to be able to receive their funds from the transaction. They need to be able to track their order. They need to be able to fulfill the order. They need to be able to provide receipts on the order. But in the traditional e-commerce sense, like the consumer expects to only have one basket, but the suppliers need multiple baskets. So it becomes a little bit of a tricky situation.
But wait a second. When you talk about suppliers, are you talking about vendors?
Yeah. So you're right. I'm talking about vendors, merchants, suppliers, or like organizations largely that are trying to retail their products through your platform.
Right.
So they each need a way to manage their orders separate from one another without falling into conflict. So Shuup's solution to this is basically a parent-child relationship where we have child baskets that each supplier possesses. We fill them up. We do our magic, our secret sauce that I'm not allowed to release, but we do some secret sauce on it. And then when the checkout process is complete, we have a separate order. We have separate shipping methods. We have, basically a way to track these transactions set, like completely autonomous from one another, but the end consumer still has the experience of having one basket. This more or less takes us on to our next points, like the fulfillment of the product itself, right? So fulfillment, like once you sell something, you have to deliver it, which is something I have to remind my sales staff all the time. When we sell something, we must deliver. So when we are talking about fulfillment in terms of a retail product, it's a sticky situation because, if you're in the continental United States, you can use USPS, UPS, DHL, FedEx. There's a lot of things available to you. But say that you're in the EU and say you're in Germany, and you want to use Deutschmail, Deutschmail, you can probably process all of your transactions throughout the EU. No one's in France is going to be asking for a Deutschmail shipping method from you. So it sort of becomes this multi-vendor problem of who is going to be responsible for fulfillment, the admin, moderator, or the vendor, merchant, supplier themselves. And Shuup's default solution to this is that the vendor is responsible. So we allow our vendors to each set up their own shipping methods, either with GoShippo, which we can get into, I guess, a little bit later, or they can set up their manual shipping methods, which you've actually documented pretty well on our YouTube channel.
Right.
So each vendor can do this on their own. And in the checkout process, the customer will select how they want their product fulfilled by this vendor. And then they can use sort of our standard shipping modules within Shuup to, fulfill this order. I've been saying order a lot, and this sort of takes us to the next point, is that once the customer has specified how they want to receive the product, when they want it, who they want it from, it actually comes down to the vendor to actually provide them that order. And this is where, I briefly mentioned before, on completion of the transaction in the checkout process, we are going to separate the order into 3 separate orders that can be managed separate from all the other orders. So this means that the vendor can set their own shipping methods. They can process their own partial or full refunds. If they need to get in contact with the customer, they have all this type of shipping detail information, such as address, name. Each vendor is going to get this separate, and they need to live separate from each other because you don't want vendors interfering with each other's business. In the same way, when you move out of the house, you say, "Mom, stop it.
Right.
So,
So vendors can be responsible for their own shipping methods and order management.
Yeah, like it's the utmost importance that like there's no interfering interests during this like multi-vendor checkout process.
All right. So the main difference in between multi and single vendor marketplaces is basically the checkout process, that it's more straightforward and easy in a single marketplace. And then there are so many things to be taken into account in a multi-vendor marketplace. And then shipping methods. I would assume that a single vendor marketplace would use how many shipping methods, do you think?
For a single vendor, I mean,
yeah,
it depends on where you are. In the United States, like you could use USPS priority mail. You could use UPS and FedEx. Those are the ones that I'm an Ohio boy, so like those are the ones I'm accustomed to using.
Right.
But I mean, I'm sure that there's many more shipping methods available in the United States.
But in the multi-vendor marketplace, you can create eternal amount of custom shipping methods in addition to Shippo.
Yeah. So like when you're using Shippo, you can create a lot of different shipping methods. So like it kind of comes down to there can be sort of this UI problem that like is also an issue. Because imagine you have 12, you're doing your Christmas shopping and you know, are trying to buy presents for everyone in your family. And let's say you have, you know, a couple siblings, you know, grandparents, maybe like a little nephew or niece, and you want to do all of your shopping in one place. You could easily have like 6 vendors in your checkout with like, and they each have 3 shipping methods. So like, you know, 6 times 3, it's 18 different shipping methods you can select from. So like there is this like complexity that comes in as these multi-vendor shipping methods start scaling out. It starts becoming a bit of an issue to manage. These are something at Shuup that we're like very presently aware of. But as a white label company, we largely need our vendors to tell us how they want this to be managed. There's a lot of different solutions to this, such as selecting the same shipping method, for example, USPS priority for all of the shipments. Well, you use the same system, but this will be billed to all the separate accounts. Like that's just one solution. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can come at this problem. So it is a one that exists, and like any admin moderator should be mindful of, you know, if they're processing many transactions and if hundreds of vendors, this is something that can happen. So sorry, I did a little brain dump on everybody. I do that from time to time. I'm sorry.
Well, we hope it was useful. But another big issue that many people might not even consider is taxation. And when we talk about European countries, it's more or less straightforward. But when we're talking about US, and there are different sales taxes in all states, and, you know, it might get very complicated very quickly, especially when we're talking about multi-vendor marketplaces. But I guess that single vendors also face these problems. And what do you have to say about this?
So I say that there's the European problem, and I say that there's the American problem. So question for you, Daria, what is the American problem?
I'm not quite sure because I'm not American, but I would assume that for me, the thing that I don't understand is that they have different sales tax in all the states. And because there's a lot of commerce going on all across the country, it's beyond my understanding. Why wouldn't you use one sales tax all over the country?
Well, I mean, you know, the American universities put out some of the smartest people in the world, but unfortunately,
they didn't make it into.
No, I'm just stuck there. So yes, this is a huge issue, and it's something I work with each customer on during our sales process, is going over the Wayfair versus South Dakota case, which TaxNexus basically sprung on and like has been wreaking havoc on small businesses across the United States. So we don't take these political. It's just look up this Supreme Court case. It's an extremely important one. If you've never worked in e-commerce before, you must read the Supreme Court decision. It's paramount that you understand how this works. But before I really get into it, I got another question for Daria. How many tax jurisdictions are in the United States?
Oh my God, are you interviewing me for citizenship?
Maybe. Let's see here. How many tax jurisdictions?
Tax jurisdictions. That was not on the application. I'm telling you, okay. It was not 50.
50?
I don't know, as many jurisdictions as there are states.
Yeah. Do you think that's a lot?
Yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if you tell me that each state has more than one.
Yeah. So there's actually 10,000 tax jurisdictions in the United States. That's one of my favorite statistics. So yeah, so basically in the United States, you have to track not only by state, but by zip code. So in my humble little nook of the United States that I come from called Lake County, I believe the tax rate is like in sort of the 7 to 8% range. And then if you drive basically 20 minutes in your car, you'll land in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, where the sales tax rate jumps up 1%. And you actually are required to calculate these things correctly. Now, if you're like a merchant vendor supplier within Ohio, you're probably used to paying these kinds of sales taxes within the Ohio jurisdictions. It really becomes a nightmare because now when you hit tax nexus, say with Indiana, or you hit tax nexus with Pennsylvania or New York State or California, that, I think there's 88 counties in Ohio. You now have to think about not only those 88 counties, but also, the 100 to 120 some counties that might be in California. So the United States is a big place. So this presents a huge, huge problem. While making it much more simple, if you get out of the United States, most other countries have flat taxes, such as Australia has GST, which is basically a flat sales tax rate that's federally mandated across the entire country. And there's some products that are exceptions to this. Which makes Australian sales tax super easy to calculate because it's just like one tax rate. In Finland, where our, sort of the technology was born out of, there's 3 different VAT rates based on the type of product or service you're offering. It's very much the same across all of the other like European countries, such as Poland has a flat rate. Can't remember any of the other countries that I've dealt with off the top of my head. But the European situation is pretty simple. And what we recommend our European customers is just use our manual tax rate system within the platform. If they're not planning on selling in the United States, like they can limit all of their shipping methods and with using service behavior components and limit their marketplace to just the continental Europe or the countries that they want to serve. If you're in the United States, you're basically stuck using Avalar or TaxJar. It's like, I don't know. I guess the lawyers have to eat as well. So you have to give them their money. They're going to take their pound of flesh. So I think TaxJar is about $100 a month. And if you're going to be running a multi-vendor site, it's almost a requirement at this point. We have some short-term workarounds for startups and small businesses to get around having to pay these additional subscription fees and integration fees. I don't want to publicize them here because I don't think they're actually long-term solutions that people should consider using. It's more or less something that we do if people absolutely they just don't have budget to give these 2 groups their pound of flesh.
Alrighty. Wow, that was a lot. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of stuck on the first part of it and trying to digest the idea of tax jurisdictions. So, wow, it's great that Shuup actually has solutions or offers integrations with solutions to these kind of problems that are, well, in my humble opinion, very difficult, but also manually created by humans. But yes, you're right. Lawyers have to eat. Everybody has to eat. And this is how the world is running. We are feeding off of each other in a way. And I feel like taxes, it's a very good display of this food chain in a way. But
I mean, the government has to run. There's nothing against it. So
no, of course. Yeah. We're all taxpayers. We understand the importance of it. It's just it's complicated enough. Let's not complicate it even more. But what can I say? What do I know? Okay. But we've been through some really difficult topics. We've talked about technology and taxation. And in my opinion, these are the things that should be considered in the first place when you're planning a marketplace and when you are deciding whether you want to build a marketplace just for yourself, if you are selling some goods or services, or if you'd like to not only sell your goods or services, but also invite other people to sell on your platform and build a multi-vendor marketplace. But what are the biggest advantages of running either?
So yeah, single vendor marketplaces, which actually we do provide single vendor marketplaces. We're not only a multi-vendor platform, we can provide a single vendor as well. It's just like our secret sauce that we provide right now is the multi-vendor. So from the single vendor perspective, single vendors, Very simple. Like you have inventory, you put it online, you sell it, you fulfill it, you make the money, you pay your bills. That business model is pretty straightforward. Um, there's a lot of white labeling solutions and technologies for this need. There's also a lot of open source technologies that you can utilize if you're working with developers. So like this is a pretty known, this problem is solved. Like it's very well known solution. There shouldn't be a problem. And since like it's only, you're only have to really keep an eye on your own inventory and your own sales. It's, in my opinion, a little bit less responsibility for the owner because they just have to make sure that they, keep their information on track. The multi-vendor marketplace, it really gives you the ability to increase your product diversity. So the example I give is that say that you are a flower company and you sell orchids or you sell tulips, things like this, and you want to basically provide a multi-vendor experience. You might have an inventory at your flower shop of all of these different flowers that you want to sell, but might actually be holding an inventory for flower pots. So, which means how can you sell something in a single vendor marketplace if you don't actually have it on your shelf? The solution is go to a multi-vendor marketplace where you call up your buddy, I don't know, maybe Jaakko, who's a Finnish flower pots retailer, and you say,
Why not?
hey
Jaakko
Jaakko, come to my marketplace. You make the most beautiful ceramic pots. I would like you to sell it alongside my flowers. We could package together. We'll do it's called synergy. We'll have synergy together.
I love it. Jaakko the flower guy and the synergy.
Yeah. Jaakko the flower guy, working off the synergy. So, but these two guys could pair together. They could sell their product together, hold inventory separately. They can each take their slice of the transaction based on the value at which they're selling their products. And that to me is immediately more value for the consumer because I don't have to go to two separate sites, one to buy a flower, one to buy a flower pot. I can do it in one spot.
That makes sense.
So I think this also makes sense for regional groups, such as cities that have been hit very hard by the COVID, where they want to keep their local supply chain intact, keep their local vendors and merchants and small businesses intact. I've had many requests from municipalities where they want to set up a local e-commerce environment for their city or county where people can basically buy and sell local.
Right.
Because you can't go to the stores anymore. Well, I mean, you can, but you really shouldn't, but that's a different discussion.
I understand. I actually really love the idea of creating sort of a business community and bringing all the, small businesses or maybe some self-employed people, entrepreneurs together just to create this community and help them grow together and be able to still provide services. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, the only thing that actually makes any e-commerce site successful is the community behind it. So multi-vendor marketplaces allow you not only to diversify your products easier, build partner networks easier, but you can also increase your site traffic through a larger community because you're not only tapping into the people you're tapping into the people that your partners know, and you can pool your resources to drive more site traffic, to drive up your sales, which is, in the end, you're successful based on the number of, deals you do. I get that from my boss all the time. Where's the money? With the e-commerce site that's multi-vendor, you can have more people on it and drive more revenue, and everybody ends up making more money. So from a marketplace owner perspective, if you're the admin moderator, theoretically, you could be a vendor on your own platform. So you're not only selling your products, but you're also making your commission or membership fee for basically investing the money, putting the capital up to set this marketplace up. And, it's a good way to add some residual revenue on top of your e-commerce activities.
All right. Next thing I actually want to ask you, and please do not sugarcoat it because people have the right to know, what are the disadvantages of running single and multi-vendor marketplace?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I don't like to sugarcoat anything. I always tell my customers the horror story first. So
let's do the horror story. I love it.
Okay, so with the single vendor marketplace, from a technology standpoint, once you're running single vendor, for example, maybe on a Shopify or BigCommerce or CS Cart, it's trying to migrate to a multi-vendor marketplace can be problematic. outside of just like jumping between different types of databases, whether you're going from MySQL to Postgres, Oracle to Postgres, Postgres to Oracle, MariaDB, MongoDB, I could keep going on. Jumping between databases can be a bit of a headache, but it's even just like the schema, like the structure of the entire database is fundamentally different because you have to track in a single marketplace. You're like, the vendor is almost assumed because you are the shop is the vendor in a sense, where in Shuup, the shop is not the retailer. The shop is really the moderator, and the vendors are the merchant suppliers who are providing product. So like, because this structure is fundamentally different in terms of business logic, making these database migrations can be changes if you want to port things over can be very difficult. The only other thing you can do here is maybe doing a CSV export from your current provider, looking at our default data importer to bring your products in, and then monkeying around in Excel for a couple of days, you know, sort of pounding your head against the wall. So it's not fun for sure. Trying to do that move. The next thing is like you have to generate traffic on your own. And like, you know, if you're a Kardashian or you're an Instagram or Snapchat or widget like influencer, like you have to drive traffic to your site. That means that you have to be on point with SEO all the time, posting blog articles, backlinking. You know, it's a full-time job boosting your site traffic. And you're doing that on your own for your own inventory and your own brand. And that actually is not inexpensive. It's time consuming to do these things. So the next problem is that you have to compete basically with multi-vendor marketplaces. So like, Daria, this is a question for you.
Oh no.
When you go to buy clothes, like where do you go?
I go mostly to Zalando.
Okay. And then in Zalando, how many brands are in Zalando?
Ooh, I don't know, hundreds.
Hundreds of brands. So like, well, Zalando's data structure might be a little different than us. I would characterize Zalando as a multi-vendor marketplace,
Right?
because you can shop all these different brands. Whether these brands are putting their information in themselves or not, it's still the multi-vendor experience. So if you're a single vendor marketplace, you're kind of, I would imagine like imagine a barbarian world. Do you want to be in a tribe of people who are promoting you? Or do you want to be the solo warrior like Mel Gibson in Mad Max, out there in your car or in your motorcycle by yourself? Well, it's super romantic. It sounds fun. It's actually extremely difficult.
Like you
and
made
expensive.
it sound too cool to it actually to be true, because first of all, you might not have a car on a motorcycle and you might not be cool, and you'll have to just invent yourself and try to learn all the things that you've never known. Like, let's say you make beautiful jewelry and you want to sell it, but can you actually sell it if you don't know who your target audience is? You don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I mean, you basically not only have to be a jewelry maker, you have to be a marketer at the same time.
You'll have to be many things at the same time.
Well, it's like part of being a startup entrepreneur anyways.
True.
It's a tough racket for sure. So the multi-vendor marketplace, like the painful things I work with my customers, especially at launch, is that like they will one day they get really excited. We get into the project, we start building, like we start getting ready to deploy, they start putting their first products in, and then like a light bulb clicks. I have tax responsibilities. I have to pay sales tax. And like, then they start thinking, oh my God, like I have to pay sales tax in this state, in this state, in this state, in this state. And like the world starts turning and spinning, and they get dizzy, and they call me on the phone and they're like, Wes, I have to pay sales tax at all these places. I don't want to go to jail. And it's like, listen, like you haven't made enough money to go to jail for tax evasion. So don't worry about that.
Well, at least they feed you in jail, I guess.
It's also kind of nice. So, well, I'm not advocating imprisonment here at all. I'm just saying that it's important to take a deep breath. Like wherever your brick and mortar store is, like wherever you're physically located, you'll definitely have to pay sales tax there. But in terms of hitting tax nexus with the other 49 states around you in the United States, like one, do your research, check the tax nexus laws. Like, but a lot of them have like requirements like $200,000 of revenue within the state. Like these thresholds are high. So usually when like small businesses are getting started with multi-vendor marketplaces, they get really freaked out about all these like new tax rules they have to follow. But like, it's not as scary as you think. In the end, like, although like we want everyone to make $1 million in the first year, and even if you made $1 million in your first year, if you divided by 50 states evenly, which is not actually the way this would happen ever, but if you were to divide by 50 states, like you're well with under almost all of the taxes, like nexus thresholds. The other thing is, like, you know, if you're jumping into a multi-vendor marketplace, like you're basically creating a competitive environment and driving prices down on your vendors. So like because you're basically destroying any asymmetric information that might appear if you are a single vendor marketplace, such as like, you know, a ceramics boutique that sells, you know, really interesting figurative ceramic figurines, whatever they are, like Russian dolls, for example. Like someone would go to your site, I really like that Russian doll. That's amazing. I want to buy that. And they buy it and they check out and then they have a Russian doll. Whereas if they go to a multi-vendor website, they would say, well, I want to see all the Russian dolls. Like, I just don't want to see these ones. Who else is selling Russian dolls? Okay, well, these are all kind of nice, but that one's the least expensive and it looks the same as the others. So I'll buy that one. So like this type of like microeconomic situation you're creating, like will drive down prices essentially. So like this competition can be sometimes very difficult for vendors over time because, you know, the competition is out there and that's part of like the capitalist mode of economics. But it does exist and can cause headaches for vendors on your platform. The last thing I really want to get into is owners has more administrative responsibilities. So not only if you're a vendor in your platform selling, that's one thing, but when you actually are the administrator as well, you have to keep an eye on all of the content on your website. So you have to make sure that there's no vulgarity. You have to make sure that everyone's following the terms and conditions, that the vendors are basically following your brand standards in terms of image quality. You have to make sure that, you know, that they're actually fulfilling their orders. Like only a couple bad vendors not fulfilling their orders and, you know, basically ripping people off, like the better term coming to mind, can destroy your own brand image because they're going to be more angry at you as the platform for allowing the vendor to be there than they are going to be at the vendor themselves. They're definitely be angry at the vendor, but they're definitely going to blame you as well. Like, I don't know, when things go awry with Amazon and my things don't arrive on time and I get problems, my first gut reaction is like, I should have never bought this on Amazon. I should have just gone to the bookstore. Or
Right.
like,
You never blame the vendor. You don't even think about who you buy it from, to be honest. You
because
just
they're
like,
anonymous almost.
yeah, but even in the platforms where you see who the vendor is, you still think that it's the responsibility of the platform owner, administrator, to watch out for these things as unreliable vendors and late deliveries, or if something comes broken, for example.
Yeah. So you can't make money for doing nothing, you know? So
Alrighty.
there is, you know, while you have this platform to, you know, to sell your own products and to partner with people and bring them in to sell their products as well. You are still sort of the responsible party for the marketplace. And, you know, as like, you know, my, uh, God, what was the guy's name from Spider-Man?
Ben?
Uncle Ben used to say, with great power comes great responsibility. So, so the Spidey senses are the same here for the multi-vendor marketplace. Like
With great marketplace comes a lot of responsibilities.
exactly. So, you know, it's important to keep this in mind. It's not multi-vendor marketplaces are not a set it and forget it industry. You have to be present and you have to work on it. You have to make sure your vendors are happy. You have to make sure your customers are happy.
That makes sense. So to sum it up, today we talked about differences of single and multi-vendor marketplaces. And there are quite a few, if you think about it in detail. And even though it's a beautiful thing to run your own business and, you know, to have your own little corner, like a landing page or your own marketplace, it's a safer space, in my opinion, to be also on the market, on the multi-vendor marketplace in a way. But also with Shuup, you can customize a lot as a vendor. For example, in terms of your shipping methods, how you do your inventory, I guess.
Yeah, order management.
Order management,
Yeah.
alrighty. So does anybody have any questions about what we've talked about or anything else to ask about e-commerce marketplaces, single or multi-vendor? We'd love to answer some questions.
Okay, so we got a question in. Do you want to read it, Daria?
Is it more difficult to keep a multi-vendor marketplace secure versus single vendor? This is actually a really good
that's a good question. So
security.
Security is on multiple levels. So like you have like the data transmission security that's usually handled by like HTTPS, like secure, like hypertext transfer protocol. So like that's going to work fine. Single vendor and multi-vendor, mostly the same. In terms of keeping user data private, this is important. So the actual admin is when users sign up to be part of your marketplace or to be a customer, they're signing their terms and conditions with you and not your vendor. So it's important when you're writing your terms and conditions to think about how am I going to be sharing my data with the vendors themselves. Like, am I going to be sharing the email of the customer? Will I share the phone number? Do I share their address? Like, what information does the vendor actually need to see? Am I going to allow this vendor to export their customers into a CSV file and put it into MailChimp so they can start sending email blasts to my own users? So like, these are the questions you have to ask yourself before your marketplace really launches, and you have to add these types of things to your terms and conditions. So in terms of like the technical security, there's largely no difference. I mean, you're going to be, if you're using proper DevOps principles, you're going to have proper firewalls in place. You're going to be using secure communications, either over some sort of like isolated TCP. And like, I largely don't see any major differences there. It really all mostly comes down to user protection and GDPR.
Wow, thank you for a very explicit answer, Wesley. If you're watching this as a recording of our webinar and you still have a question, you can always email us and just refer to the webinar so we know what you're talking about, because you might be referring to a specific thing that we've discussed. And just ask us this question and we'll be happy to respond. Okay, alrighty. I think we are gonna wrap it up and finish this party. But I invite you all to listen to us again next week, same time, same day, it's Thursday. And I hope to see you there, and send us some feedback and follow us on YouTube. And thank you so much for joining us today. You have a lovely day. Wes?
Oh, yeah. Everyone have a good day. Have a good day.
I usually love giving the final word to the guests, but you kind of fell asleep there.
No, I didn't fall asleep. I just I wasn't sure if you were gonna take us out. So
no, I think you should do the Spider-Man phrase, and we'll finish there.
Great power comes great responsibility. So everyone have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week.